Okay, this is the second video on stars. I hope you saw the other one. You can click on the link to it. You're going to see a bunch more different ways of putting stars together, and I hope you enjoy it. Okay, so we just did this one. That's number 1 of 28 pages. So I hope you're keeping up. All right, so the next one in the PDF is just a couple of 5-pointed stars. One's fat and one's skinny. We've got the lines just reversed. The thing that's important when you build these is that as you solder them, you want to put a lump of solder in each corner so to give extra reinforcement. Otherwise, you'll hold it out and it'll drop right off. You can also use these, this is a good place to use those little, what do you call them, objects. You know, you can put them in here and that will strengthen them as well. Okay, so that's the second page. Now the third page, this is a 10-inch star or 12, something like that. We use a 1-inch diameter or thereabouts jewel, and you need 5 of this pattern piece. The thing about it is that they all interlock so that as you solder them, you get a really strong star. And this is not the case with most stars. So we really like this one. And that's your third design. We don't need to show you any more about that, but this fourth page is a star made up of bevels. These are 1.5 by 2.5 bevels. The next page is the same thing, only you're using 6 bevels instead of 5. So there's there's no gap. In fact, the gap goes the other direction. So I'm going to show you how this one's done. Because it's a quick project. We've often made these for Christmas ornaments and given them as gifts. I believe that one of the reasons we have so many of these bevels in our studio is that we just had, we bought a case or 2 of them because we made about 100 of them for a little store. And I think they sold for about 10 bucks a piece and the store kept half. So it was an okay project, but it didn't make us rich. So basically what we're doing here is easily going around the bevels, 5 of them. I've often thought it would be nice if you could buy pre-foiled bevels. Bevels that have the foil stuck to them already. This foil tape has really strong glue. And because this hasn't been ground or fiddled with, it's a really nice clean edge. You can use your scissor and fids if you feel comfortable with that. But for me, because this foiling process just goes so quick, and you know, if you're making 100 stars, that's 500 bevels you got to foil. Or 600 if you're doing that other one. So time savings is of the essence. You don't want to spend those extra moments if you don't need to. And you see how fast this is going for me. We had one of our stained glass students come and help us that year that we were doing all those gifts for that gift store, and Oh, it took her a half an hour just to do one star, I think. Maybe it took her 20 minutes, but that's a long time. I mean, you're not gonna if you're making them for production, like you want to make one for each member of your family, you want to get in and get them done and get them done quickly. Now, I have one more left on the okay. So maybe if you want to, you can, when you do yours, play this video while you're doing yours, and we'll have a race, and you can see who, how much faster you are than me, and I'd be interested to know if you beat my time. Okay, so that's 5 of them, and so now we line them up, and you see this ring right here on the PDF. That is so that you know how far the solder should come. Because what we're doing is we are making a star, and it's all held together with the solder. So now I can take my flux and I kind of hold some of these and I just sort of tap on it so I can get the flux on there. Okay, it's lined up. Now we're ready to solder. That's a pretty quick project, since you don't have to do any cutting or grinding. So see how this solder ran right out to the edge of my circle? You just kind of want to have that much. If you get too much, it's okay, but make sure you have about the same amount on each leg. Now as it cools, okay, it's cool enough. Now I drag the paper out from under it. Now I can go around get all these edges done. You'll notice that the foil looks a little bit wider than it did on the last project, and that is because these bevels have, they're ground, and so they're slightly thinner at the edge, and so you have more foil to go around. So now you go through and around each one of these interior pieces. Same thing holds true with these. You don't want to stay on the foil too long. And you do want to try to get the whole thing covered, both sides and top. So now when I flip this over, doesn't flop around as much as it did with the jewel, because each one of these pokes up the same amount. And so on this, because we've already done the side and top, all we need to do is this back tinning. There is a smaller ring that we sometimes use, especially when we're doing these for ornaments, but I'm going to use the one that I had left over on the last project. And we're doing the same type of technique. We're trying to put the split so that it will be soldered. And now, on this side, you can see here are places where some of the solder ran from the other side as I was putting it on the back. So I have to repair that. And I want to make sure that it looks somewhat even. This is another one that's really good if it's left silver. Okay, so we covered the 5-point star. Here's the 6-point one on the PDF. And now we're on to the Morovian star. Now the Morovian star is a 12-pointed star. And so I do need a pattern piece, just one. Now you'll see on the pattern, this is for a great big one. This is for a little tiny one. We're going to do this one because it'll be nice to see how to do it. My piece of carbon paper, and I can do a quick trace. Now you probably didn't feel like you needed to see me trace another pattern piece since I did one earlier, but you're going to like some of the techniques that I'm going to show you on this segment, because this Morovian star looks very complex, and in some ways it really is. But I've been doing them for long enough that I've developed a couple of techniques that just make it work well. Alright, so here's Here's our piece, and we need 12 of them. Now we're going to do it out of this orange glass. And what I want to do here is, instead of just laying it out haphazardly, I'm going to put my strip cutter right here up to the top edge. And I'm going to cut this strip of glass the same height of the star point. And that way, I don't hardly waste any glass at all. You see, the star point lays right on top of my strip. Then I flip it around, share the cut edge. Look at that. Now this is sort of the way we do, we're going to talk about fuse stars in a few minutes. But we do almost the same technique, except that I don't use a pattern at all. Six. I've got, that's half of them. Now, with the Morovian star, the really important part is that you have a nice flat edge. These side cuts don't matter quite as much, but they do. The more accuracy you have here, if you have a perfect triangle, you will you'll have much more success as you lay it out and solder it. Now sometimes we mix up the colors, but this time we're just going to do them all the same color, orange. And I'm pretty easy. Just remember that this inside edge cut on the lines, because we've overlapped them. On these, we're just going to use pliers. These are Grosine pliers. You use the flat side up. Now you may want to grind yours for safety. For me, these are all not very sharp. So I'm going to just go directly to foil them, and then I'm going to show you the soldering techniques. Okay, so now whenever you do three-dimensional soldering, you want to make sure and tin everything before you begin. So I've already tinned several of these Morovian star points. Try not to burn your fingers as you flip them over. Like that. I think I'm going to flip them all to let them cool. And I'm hitting this with just the right amount of an angle so that it solders on both sides. All right, now just flip those. Now I've already got flux on these. That's why the solder's cooperating. Now I'm going to put one of the Morovian stars right here so we can kind of analyze what's going on. You see, there's 4 of them. If you look at it this way, there's 4 of them in this plane, and 4 of them in this plane, and then 4 of them in this plane. So that's kind of interesting. Over the years, we've discovered that if we want to put several pieces together so that they're square. So you take a piece of glass that's got a square edge on it and butt them up against it, and then you solder this corner. Okay, that's one. Two. As I have these soldered in place, then they're nice and square, and so that creates a uniformity as you put the Morovian star together. I want to get that one just right. Okay, and I just need 4 of them. So I've got now 4 pair, and I've got 4 singles. All right, that's the main secret that we've come up with to doing a good Morovian star. So now I can take and put 2 of the pair together. Okay, now I've got the first plane. Okay, now I can take one of my pair. Now this part is very important. You want to make sure that it's 90 degrees, straight up and down. you want to put both points on top of the other points of the star. And then you melt, bring it up. Slightly, just slightly. Okay, now. Okay. Now I need to put my singles in place. You want to keep sighting down them and making sure that you can get them as square as possible. Now, flip that over. I'm ready to do my last pair. Kind of try to keep them 90 degrees to this plane, but also keep them in line with the ones down below. Okay, now we're ready for the singles. Now it may take you a little bit of practice to get it to where it's close to perfect, and maybe a whole lot more practice to get it perfect. I can see that there's places on this that are not absolute. That's one at the bottom. I'm going to twist it a little bit. Okay, now I see when you look at it, sight down it looks pretty good. Now what I do next, in order to finish it, is I take it and I solder it for strength on top. Then I flip it once. Flip it again. Just try and do a pretty looking almost like a tack. Okay, now that that part is done, now I flip it once this way. That one's good. The next one needs it. one should be good. Yep. So now we've got them all. Now on Morovian stars, I like to use a wire. What I do is I take a pencil, twist my wire around the pencil to get the loop, and then I put it down. Usually I put it clear down to the end of the point, and then we just solder it in place, and that gives us lots of length to hold our star. And then we just clean it the same way as we've been doing. All right. So we just did the Morovian star. You'll notice that on my picture of the Morovian star, that's a 3D picture, but it doesn't really look very good. That was as good as I could approximate it when I was drawing it on CAD. Okay, so the next project, this needs a little explanation. This is the star we're talking about. This is the type of star. You see, now this one was made with some mirror, and you see how the mirroring is coming loose from the edge? That happens a lot when you work with mirror. I find that no matter how I seal it, sometimes that happens. But this represents this. Now what you need to do in order to be successful on this is that you need 5 of these cut this way and 5 of them that are flipped over and cut the other direction. So you got them this way and this way. Then you want to foil them just like you do on the other windows. Then you tack them together. Let's see, you've tinned them all. You tin them all, and then you tack them. But what you want to do is you start, let's see, this is actually drawn wrong. You want to tack this top piece, but you want to have it at a similar angle to this, but only tack it here and here. And then take another one, do all 5 of them, tacking them at the top and the bottom, just tacking them though, so that you can still bend them. Then place them up against each other and tack and tack, tack and tack, tack and tack, tack and tack, until you have all 5 of them, and they'll form sort of a fan-like thing, but not quite like this. I'll change this for the PDF so that it looks similar to how it really goes. Then the whole thing is really wobbly, and you pull it around until the final 2 can be lined up, and you tack and tack, and they're still going to be really wobbly. They're going to be floating all over the place. So what you want to do is kind of hold them down on your table to where they're nice, and you get them just as close as you can to what you want the actual star to look like. Then you take and you solder this piece on. Now this one's a jewel. You can use a glass glob, you can use just a little piece of glass, whatever you want. When you solder this to all these 5, it becomes rigid. And at that point then you can go ahead and you can do your 3D soldering on everything. It's a really nice piece. On this one, you see I went ahead and soldered my heavy copper wire here and then wound it around, and now you can plop it down onto a Christmas tree and it stands there just nice. But I didn't want to go through all the time to actually solder it. All right, this is David in the stained glass studio. I hope you enjoyed those few stars that you got an introduction to. Hope you try some of them yourself. Now the next video will be even more complex, so stick with us. Thanks for being here.